Well, immigration lawyers are warning travellers to expect additional scrutiny when visiting the United States, amid reports of Australians being refused entry. The Trump administration is cracking down on immigration and border control and has issued an executive order calling on border officials to use enhanced vetting for foreign nationals. Sherwin Noorian is a lawyer specialising in US immigration law, and he joins me now. Thanks very much for your time. How would you characterise the feelings of travellers from Australia to the United States at the moment?
Hi, Selena. There's certainly a lot of anxiety at the moment out there amongst foreign nationals, including Australian citizens who are thinking about or do have plans to travel to the United States. There's a lot of upsetting stories out there of people being refused entry and denied the ability to enter the U.S. for tourism. And that's giving people a lot of cause for concern.
What kind of stories are there, and how true are they?
Well, there's been a number of different stories of varying nationalities, including one Australian citizen. It's hard to know all the details based off the reports. As an immigration lawyer, I will say that usually there is some triggering factor or something in the facts that may lead to a refused entry. There's not always. There can be overzealous border officers. It's something that I will say has always happened. I have worked with many Australian citizen clients who were previously refused entry to the U.S., and that was under other presidents. So it's not something new. It may be increasing at the moment, but there's no data that's available at the moment to confirm whether or not that is the case.
So who do you think should be concerned about travelling to the US?
I think people who may be on sort of the edge of breaking potential rules of visitor status. So, for example, on the ESTA or the visa waiver program, which is what an Australian would generally use to visit the United States, one cannot work in the US. They can undertake business visits. They can undertake tourism, meetings with colleagues, but they cannot do their day-to-day job while in the US. And that includes working remotely. Longer stays, so going in with an intended, say, near the maximum allowed of 90 days. If you do not have sort of a defined itinerary, that could be a red flag for border officers. So there's not one specific profile of people who should be concerned. I think for the most part, the vast majority of Australians who travel to the US are just fine, but there are always going to be certain cases. There's also situations where people might have a criminal background or a drug violation, and the US is very strict on this, and they would need to be careful before traveling to the US.
So the powers of border officers haven't actually changed, but they are enforcing them in different ways, you believe?
That's correct. So the law has always been there, and one thing that may be unique about the United States with respect to non-citizens who are seeking to enter, border officers on their own have a wide latitude to deny entry. And that's what the current updated Australian Smart Traveller advice actually says, which is true. So that has not changed, especially under the ESTA or the visa waiver program. Unfortunately, they can refuse entry really for any reason, and they can simply say, you're not going to use the ESTA, you need to go and apply for a visa at the US consulate. So that has always been the case, but what's happening now is the Trump administration has issued that executive order basically instructing their agencies to apply additional vetting. So that is sort of a signal to officers, hey, if you want to give people another look and to spend a little bit more time on this, you have our backing to do that.
Now, border officers can search your phone and any other devices you might be carrying, is that right?
That's correct. So that is a power that many countries have, including the United States. And in fact, Australia has the same powers to inspect devices. But yes, at the port of entry in the United States, if you are a non-citizen and citizen, you can be asked to hand over your devices. Now, they cannot forcibly take your devices. However, if you are a non-citizen and you seek to enter the US and you refuse that request, then they are going to deny entry.
So let's say I've got my visa waiver and that's been ticked off and I'm going to the US. What is your advice to me as an Australian traveller?
So under the visa waiver program, the first thing to know is you must have a return flight booked. And in fact, I don't think the airline will even let you on board if you don't have a return flight already. You need to know and be able to explain clearly what your intended activities are in the US. So you must have a foreign residence, in other words, your place of residence in Australia, where all your belongings are, your base is. If you are going on a longer trip, you will probably want some documentation that you've taken leave, your employment agreement, pay slips. That's not required for everyone, but if you wanted to be very prepared, these are things that you can do, or at least be prepared to explain if asked. What they want to see is ties to your home country, and they want to see that you're going to go back, and they want to be sure that you're not going to work and also not pose a risk to the United States.
Sherwin Noorian, thank you very much for your time and explaining that to us.
Thanks for having me.